Welcome to Doom Eternal, an extremely fast-paced boomer shooter that dares to ask the question, how much violence, speed, and momentum do you want with your demon slaying? Where the answer for me, of course, is yes. I'm just gonna come out swinging and say it. Doom Eternal is a masterclass in how to make an incredibly fun and satisfying first-person shooter. I mean, to me it's up there with Halo 3, Half-Life 2, and even Timesplitters 2 back in the day. Dang, I miss Timesplitters. It's so excellent, in fact, that it wasn't afraid of coming out on the same day as its biggest competitor, Animal Crossing New Horizons. No, but actually, I still kind of find that hilarious, and all the cute Doom guy meets Isabelle fanart is highly appreciated. For real though, Doom Eternal is not afraid to kick you in the nuts and relentlessly beat you while you're down, and while that might sound frustrating to me, and because I think it's for the most part pretty fair, it's actually incredibly refreshing. It's a sequel to that rather popular Wood 2016 game that everyone was talking about, which itself was a reboot of the Doom series from the year I was born. The game has been out for 4 years now, and I've owned it for like 2 or 3 of those, but it wasn't until these past few weeks that I really got into it. Shout out to Nick for the game suggestion in my predecessor video. Eternal was already on my backlog of games I needed to get around to, so I'm happy to cover it. If you've got a game you think I should talk about it, make sure to let me know. If you're new to boomer shooters, let me just take a second to explain what makes them different from, say, Call of Duty or Disney's CSGO. Boomer shooters are first-person shooters where, for the most part, combat takes place in relatively small arenas that you're encouraged to be constantly on the move in and jumping around so as to not die, because hiding behind cover is really not an option. Also, typically, boomer shooters forsake some realism and make it so you don't really have to reload your guns all the time, which is pretty different from most modern FPSs. Each gun has limited ammo, but you'll find ammo scattered throughout these arenas that you can pick up, and in the case of Doom Eternal here, you can chainsaw a demon to get a giant amount of ammo back. So you've got this constant back and forth of spending your different types of ammos, realizing, oh shit, I have no super shotgun ammo, time to chainsaw somebody, swinging your chainsaw like a madman and missing one of those basic zombies, and then dying. No, but for real, it does take some getting used to, but before I knew it, I had developed a sixth sense for when I needed to chainsaw. It's really cool. Anyhow, if this is your first time playing a boomer shooter, like it pretty much was for me, well, I've got good news for you. The game holds your hand and teaches you in all the right ways on a first playthrough, without actually making the game too easy. You could play on the easiest difficulty, which, by the way, I love that they have all these different difficulties and that it doesn't make fun of the player for picking the easiest one like so many other hardcore games would. And you could still experience a substantial challenge if you're new to the genre. The tutorials are incredibly short and very to the point. They teach you the essentials of combat and tricks for dealing with specific demons, which is crucial knowledge on the harder difficulties. And they let you focus on just trying to implement these tactics that you learn in the tutorials in your own gameplay at your own pace. The game has 3 primary different types of experiences on offer here. You've got your story campaign, which is what I think is fair to say is what most people are here for. You've also got a horde mode, where you fight waves of enemies in various arenas and try to reach a new high score by the end of the level, while unlocking randomly assigned weapons on the way. And lastly, what's called battle mode, which is Eternal's version of multiplayer, which, well, it's a whole thing, and I'll get into it later. I mean, why spoil the fun? I want to start by talking about the campaign, since it's really the meat of the game. But first, please take the time to give the video a like if you enjoy it, and consider subscribing for more videos. It really helps me out. And if you ever get tired of seeing my thumbnails, you can always unsubscribe whenever you feel like it. Alright, with that out of the way, let's talk campaign. Eternal's campaign is definitely linear, with each mission boiling down to a series of different combat arena sections, interspersed with some traversal segments that serve as breathing points in between combat, and maybe some puzzle solving here and there if you're into unlocking all the different collectibles the game has to offer. Seriously, there are a lot of them. Those of you that like to 100% your games, this is for you. And just to be clear, me calling Eternal linear is absolutely not a dig at it. It being structured the way it is what makes it such a carefully crafted experience. It's not like I'm out here asking for an open world Doom game or anything. Although, the base game's campaign is split into a dozen or so missions, which will take you through a pretty generic but welcome story about the Doomslayer having to save humanity and Earth from a demonic invasion once again. The cutscenes are brief, but make for a fun watch the first time around, and thankfully they can be skipped if desired. There are some light humor moments, which I won't ruin for those of you that haven't played it yet, the type of bit that gets at least a chuckle out of me. If you're here purely for a memorable story experience, you should turn back now. It's very light, but what's here is nicely presented, and no cutscenes overstay their welcome. While the base campaign stands on its own, the 2 DLCs Ancient Gods Part 1 and 2 continue the Doomslayer's journey to a satisfying conclusion and add some of the most enjoyable and infuriating moments to the game, so you know, they're well worth playing. If you're wondering how long a whole playthrough would be, I clocked in about 20 to 24 hours going through the entire base game plus DLCs once without going out of my way for all of the unlockables. Also, I first played on the Hurt Me Plenty difficulty setting because I ain't no pro and I ain't afraid to admit that. So, if you're only gonna do one playthrough, you know, you can still get your money's worth. But there is a lot of replayability, which I'll get into more detail later on. Anyways, levels can take anywhere from 20 minutes to maybe as long as an hour, depending on how dedicated you are to finding all of the secrets spread out throughout the level and whether or not your IQ is high enough to solve this goddamn stupid puzzle in the cultist base. While solving puzzles and the occasional platforming section might not sound like what you're looking for in a Doom game, let me reassure you that the blood-pumping action is still the focus of this incredible experience, and that they mostly serve as little breathers in between all the insane arena fights. I mean, if this game was just go 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 for an entire level, I think I'd have a heart attack. Speaking of action, let's talk about it. Doom Eternal has gotta be the fastest paced first-person shooter I have ever played. Your goal in all of these arena-like sections is to rip and tear all of these demons with all of the weapons and tools that you have at your disposal, and somehow at the end of it all survive. This is not an easy game. Enemies are incredibly threatening and will kill you if you don't play smart, especially on the harder difficulties. Like I mentioned earlier, I first played through the game on Hurt Me Plenty, and that was a fun challenge. Not an absolute walk in the park, but not so frustrating that I wanted to punch something either. It was a comfortable experience, and I enjoyed it a lot. Now, I've just completed a Nightmare difficulty playthrough, and let me tell you, it's a whole different story. The enemy AI is relentless, and they deal so much damage to me that I have to be constantly on the move while switching from weapon to weapon to deal with all the different threats that the game is throwing at me. It can be infuriating at times, but like, it's addicting. Going from incredibly visceral glory kill to hopping on a jump pad, launching me into the air while I rain down rockets, and then pulling out my super shotgun so that I can chain hook onto an enemy and fly off to the other side of the arena while being one hit away from death is just so damn satisfying when you pull it off. The action is just so fast paced that I have to rely on my reflexes and quick thinking to solve how to deal with each combination of enemies I encounter, because things are happening so quickly that no matter how much I try to prepare for a tough fight that I know is coming up, I always end up having to wing it and try my best to remember what the right combination of weapons plus toolkit combos will help me deal with an enemy quickly on the spot, which if I'm being completely honest here, I still struggle with, but it's good to know that there's still something for me to work on. Speaking of getting better, looking through my footage in preparation for making this video has been really fun to look at because I can actually see how much I've gotten better at moving around the arenas more consistently and just dealing with enemies much more efficiently. Like, this is me trying to fight off a Marauder, one of the trickiest assholes in the game, in the Ancient Gods Part 2 from 3 weeks ago on Hurt Me Plenty. Notice how I suck at it. And this is me fighting a Marauder with less upgrades available yesterday on Nightmare. I can tell that I am actively getting better at the game, and that is very satisfying. What makes this possible is that the skill ceiling in Eternal is insanely high. I mean, just ridiculously high. Watching speedruns of this game is like watching John Wick on 4 times speed if he also had wings. Mad respect to you guys who speedrun this. Speaking of speedrunning, I'd love to talk about some of those advanced techniques that separate the amazing players from the good players, but before I do, I realize I should probably just give a little breakdown going over what exactly the Slayer has in his toolkit. First up, you've got your trusty combat shotgun. While it is technically a shotgun, my main use for this thing is the grenade launcher mod, which is extremely handy at the start of the game when this is the only gun around. The other mod for it, the full auto, is basically complete trash and only useful in one part of the DLC. And no, Mayo can't change my mind. The combat shotgun shares ammo with the super shotgun. As the name implies, this is the shotgun, but better. Slower to reload, but much more powerful. This thing is the meat and potatoes of my deadly arsenal. But not only does this guy pack a punch, it's also got a meat hook attachment that lets you grapple onto enemies and swing all over the place for some incredible mobility. This gun is awesome. The heavy cannon is my generic rifle type gun that I use when I'm in full panic mode, but honestly, most of the time I use it as a sniper with its precision bolt mod. The micro missiles are pretty cool too, but nothing beats the satisfying pop of headshotting an imp or zombie with this thing. The chain gun shares ammo with the heavy cannon and is the ultimate spray and pray weapon, and its weapon mods include an energy shield to tank some hits and a turret mode which I have never used. This gun is complete trash. The rocket launcher is an amazing weapon that launches a rocket at your enemies. Wild, I know. There's a super useful lock-on mod that will shoot a trio of heat-seeking missiles at enemies, and also a remote detonation mode which will let you time your explosions to hit enemies from behind. This thing does great splash damage and is my go-to weapon whenever I feel like just killing myself. Plasma gun is a very quick shooting weapon that is particularly useful for dealing with very specific energy shield based enemies. Anytime I see a blue glowy shield, I whip this gun out and blow those suckers up. Its most useful mod is the heat wave, which charges up as you shoot its normal bullets and releases a giant energy blast in a cone in front of you, which does great damage. Its second mod is called the microwave beam. It's pretty cute looking, but mostly useful for dealing with the second most annoying enemies in the game, which are only found in the DLC. Spirits. The ballista shares ammo with the plasma gun, and this thing is kind of like a giant energy-based sci-fi crossbow. It's slow to reload, but incredibly accurate and deals a metric ton of damage. Its mods include the Arbalist, which is sort of a super accurate sticky bomb launcher that packs a punch, and the Destroyer Blade, which takes a while to charge up and reduces your movement speed to a crawl, but sends out a ridiculously wide arc that slices enemy in half. This thing is satisfying as hell. Lastly, there's the BFG and the Unmaker, which are your super weapons. The BFG sends out this giant blast with tendrils that pretty much kills anything it touches, and the Unmaker is the ultimate spray and pray weapon. Both make use of the most limited ammo of them all, so I use these only when I'm in a major pinch. Oh, you've also got this Crucible Sword and Sentinel Hammer, which are used to kill enemies in one hit and get tons of health and ammo back, respectively. I tend to forget they exist. Anyways, here's my totally based and completely objective weapons tier list in case you were wondering. You've also got a handful of cooldown based equipment such as frag grenades, an ice bomb, and a flamethrower. Regular frag grenades do decent damage and can cause enemies to falter, giving you a small opening to deal some big damage on them. Setting enemies on fires with the flamethrower will make them drop ever important armor when hit for you to scoop up, and freezing enemies with an ice bomb will buy you a few precious seconds to catch your breath, reposition, or take out a dangerous threat with a blood punch. What's a blood punch? Well, I'm glad you asked. A blood punch is a super satisfying melee attack that sends out a shockwave in front of you that will stagger, falter, and sometimes kill enemies you hit with it. This one's not cooldown based, but rather charges up as you get glory kills. Glory kills are these incredibly fun kill animations that you can activate by meleeing any orange glowy enemies, and they also grant health when the enemy dies. When I'm low on HP, I am desperately trying to get glory kills to recover. As far as mobility goes, you've got a double jump, a double dash, and that meat hook from the super shotgun I mentioned earlier. Technically, bunny hopping is a thing too if you can time your jumps correctly, but I can never really pull it off consistently myself. There are also very advanced techniques like wall dashing and ramp dashing. I'm not quite sure what it's called, but basically I asked Absolute Massive, a current world record holder for a Doom Eternal speedrun, about the crazy movement stuff while he was streaming the other day, and this is how he explained it to me.
How do you time the jump and dash to just go zipping from zero momentum? I think you're talking about wall dashes. You have to dash into the wall at 45 degrees angle, so you can do it sideways by like holding forward and side movement, or you can face the wall. I'm not very good at those, honestly. There. Or maybe you're talking about ramp dashes. Those are just, you have to be on a ramp like this one. There's not too many places where you can do it, or where it's useful anyway. Then there's also cut speed, where you have like cutscene. You can preserve the speed from your dash if you dash at the right moment before the cutscene starts. Either way, he's a glitcher. Disgusting.
Did you get all that? I then tried to replicate it myself in the Fortress of Doom, which is like the game's hub area, and well, see for yourself. After about 15 minutes of trying it out, I finally got the wall dash to work a couple times in a row, only on the right side, but even with this practice, I never pulled this off in an actual mission. This advanced movement tech stuff is really cool, but absolutely not necessary to beat the game. An advanced technique that does actually make the game a lot easier is called quick swapping. Basically, it's the ability to very quickly switch between 2 or more weapons while firing shots in between each swap to consistently output much more damage than you'd be able to if you just stuck to one gun, because you're bypassing the little cooldown reload animation thing. This is much easier said than done, but it is something that can be practiced. And it makes a huge difference while in combat if you become proficient at it. I'm definitely still just a scrub at this, but I feel like I'm getting much better at it, and that is always cool to see. Also, if you're on controller, quick swapping between more than 2 weapons is way harder, because you need to rely on using the weapon wheel instead of just each gun having its own key to press like on a keyboard. Actually, I think the whole game is considerably more difficult on controller than on PC, but don't worry, if you are a controller player, I've located and infiltrated an expert's home so that he can teach you how to hold your controller properly when you're playing Doom. Here's the self-proclaimed controller expert himself, Nick.
Back when I was a casual gamer, I would hold my controller like this. Now that's fine if you're playing solitaire, but if you're the kind of psychopath that wants to play Doom Eternal on console, you're gonna die a lot. I mean, look at this. I have to take my thumb off the stick to jump, and I can only spray the flame belt straight in front of me. But when I use the claw grip, which I did not invent, my index finger is available for all 4 buttons and my middle and ring finger are on the right bumper and right trigger respectively. So there's virtually no delay between when I think of a button to press and when I can press it, and I can do multiple actions at once, like looking around while jumping or using the flame belch, and I can quick switch weapons much faster than I could if it were only one finger on the bumper and trigger. This grip doesn't make me any less of a filthy casual, but at least I can beat the game on Nightmare now. Wait, did you say you know where I live?
Anyways, when you put all these different tools the Slayer has available to him together, you end up with what DoomTubers like to call the Doom Dance. The Doom Dance is what you get when your brain starts to put together the pieces of the puzzle that is dealing with every single enemy encounter, and when you enter that sort of flow state where you just kind of know what to do and manage to pull it off without thinking about it too much. Dodge left, shoot a sticky on the Arachnotron turret, grab some armor, spot a whiplash, swap to the rocket launcher, shoot some heat-seeking missiles at it, grab onto some monkey bars, swap to your SSG, chain hook onto the fodder and across the arena, chainsaw him to get your ammo back, and all of that in just like 5 seconds. This is what Doom Eternal is all about. Anyways, the Doom Dance is exceedingly fun, and it's made possible thanks to all of the different types of demons you have to face off with. So let me tell you which demons are the biggest assholes. I'm not gonna go into detail about every single demon, but here are the most annoying ones. Cacodemons. I feel like these floating eyeballs are the poster child of the series, but to me, they're just giant dicks. Pretty much anytime I spot these dudes floating around, they get my undivided attention. They might not look like big threats, but if you let them get close and bite you, you are probably going to be dead in the next second. A grenade in their mouth usually does the trick. Arachnotrons. These mecha brain spiders ain't so bad if you take out their turrets quickly, but if you leave them alone for a while, prioritizing other enemies, they will mess you up bad. A grenade launcher or precision bolt to destroy the turret and then forget about them is my go-to. Tentacles. I hate these guys. They die in one shotgun blast, but every encounter with them is a jump scare. Screw them. Mancubuses. Oh my god. Mancubuses, or mancubi, are the bane of my existence. They've got pretty accurate arm cannons that hit like a truck, a melee attack that will wreck you if you get too close to them, and a flamethrower for good measure. Also, when you first fight them, all you have are the combat shotgun and the heavy cannon to deal with these guys, which is less than ideal. These guys make this arena on Cultist Base the hardest fight in the game, IMO. Cyber Mancubuses. These are the armored cousins of the normal Mancubi, and to be honest, they're not so bad. Ice Bomb, Blood Punch, and a super shotgun or two puts them in a glory kill state, so as long as I have an Ice Bomb off cooldown, they get taken out pretty quickly. Though I do hate the green jelly that they launch at you. That stuff hurts. Totem buff. Okay, totems might not qualify as enemies since they don't actively attack you, but I'm still including them here because as soon as there is one of these hiding around in an arena, they become priority number 1 no matter what. I would rather die trying to find this thing instead of attempting to take out the buffed up demons. This totem is an asshole. Doom Hunter. While they have a pretty cool introduction in the Doom Hunter base level, these guys are pretty annoying to deal with. They've got an energy shield covering their bodies, they ride on a hoverboard like it's Ratchet and Clank or something, and they shoot lock-on missiles at you. Initially, I would try to break the energy shield with a plasma gun and then take him out with the old super shotgun to the face technique, which was really inconsistent, but now I've improved and learned that Ice Bomb plus Blood Punch and super shotgun to the sled makes him bounce off the sled and lose the shield, and then any other combo works to finish him off pretty easily. Marauders. Man, these guys are pretty divisive in the community apparently. I guess they're massive noob stompers, but I've always quite enjoyed them, when they're not being giant assholes. They carry a big shield that spawns a spirit dog to attack you if you accidentally shoot it, and are only open to attacks when their eyes flash green, at which point they get stunned if hit for a couple seconds, giving you a little window to damage them. Most of the time, these guys are no big deal and just require some patience, but when there's a lot of other stuff going on at the same time, they can be really annoying, because that spirit dog I mentioned gets spawned even if another demon shoots his shield instead, which always ends up in a lot of unnecessary chaos. Dick move, id. Archvile. The giant Archvile is a pain in the ass to deal with when you don't know what you're doing. The most annoying thing about it is that it can spawn other demons and buff them at the same time. It's also able to put out a giant flame shield in front of it, blocking your attempts at taking it out, and it can teleport around the arena at will, because why not? This guy is absolutely worthy of my Crucible Sword charge. Pinkies. Okay, hear me out. They come out of nowhere and ram into me, and they're so short that I don't see them coming usually, and sometimes even when I try to jump over them so that I can shoot them from behind, which is what you're supposed to do, I get hit anyways. Like, what the hell? Plus, they come in the invisible variety too, because why not? They are the worst of the worst. Somehow, putting all of these enemies together with some other fodder demons really makes for an incredible shooting experience, because I am constantly trying to assess who the biggest threat is, what tools of mine are off cooldown, and how the hell am I going to kill it without dying in the process. I think there's really no other first-person shooter like it out there that makes me think as much as this one, while also demanding that I execute mechanical skills proficiently enough to survive. It is a rush. In case you're curious, here's my annoying demon tier list. Speaking of thinking, Doom Eternal does have some RPG/upgrade elements that you've got to think about when you're doing a fresh start of the campaign. They aren't particularly elaborate, and by the time credits roll, it's entirely possible that you've unlocked everything. In fact, that's even a requirement for 100% speedruns, but there is still some decision making to do here and there. First of all, there's the weapon mod system, which I've kinda mentioned earlier. Little flying robots are hanging out hidden in many of these levels, and when you find them, you get to unlock any mod of your choice for the weapons you've already acquired. The order in which you choose your weapon mod unlocks might not matter too much on an easier difficulty setting, but on the harder ones, this is super important since something like the grenade launcher mod for the combat shotgun is way more useful than the full auto mod, meaning that the early game would be rough if going for the latter first. Your mods can then be further improved by spending weapon mod points, which you get for completing arenas and special Slayer gates, optional arenas that are scattered throughout the campaign. Once a mod has been fully specialized, you can then unlock its mastery, which involves completing a sort of challenge, like the combat shotguns destroy 25 Arachnotron turrets with sticky bombs, or something ridiculous like the chain guns kill 5 enemies with a single turret without overheating 10 times. Why would anyone ever use this thing? To make things a bit easier, there are mastery tokens hidden in the later levels that let you bypass the challenge if you want. It's super handy. There are also these sentinel crystals that you can find which give you permanent max health, max armor, or max ammo increases, and some secondary effects tied to them as well. These are incredibly useful upgrades and are absolutely worth going out of your way to find because you'll want to max out all of these. Next up is the suit system, which has several different categories you can unlock in any order, like exploration, fundamentals, environmental, ice bomb, and frag grenades. I prioritized the fundamentals and the utility grenade stuff first since it seemed the most important. I mean, the ability to quick swap between weapons is locked behind one of these fundamentals, so that stuff is a game changer. Lastly, there are the runes that you can unlock, which have a pretty massive impact on how the game plays out. One of them lets you control your character's movement while in midair, another gives you a speed boost after executing a glory kill, and another even lets you survive death on a cooldown, just to name a few. You can only have 3 of these active at any one time, but you can swap them out for one another on the fly, which is pretty neat. That's about it for the RPG mechanics, if you can even call them that. Some people seem to have some beef with cramming upgrades into a Doom game, but personally, I think they're simple to understand. You can't really go wrong, and they incentivize exploration, which I'm all for. Okay, I feel like this video is blowing way out of proportion. I thought I'd be able to get all my thoughts out in like 15 minutes tops. We are way past that point now, and I still have some stuff to say, so I'm gonna speed run through some of my bullet points here. Boss fights. The boss fights in the game are pretty difficult. I can certainly see why people might not like them, but personally, I thought them a pretty fair challenge, and once I overcame the hurdle that is beating Final Sin on Nightmare difficulty, I was ecstatic. Also, if you're really struggling, you can use Sentinel Armor to just win. Sentinel Armor. This is great for people that just want to not deal with the bullshit that can be learning some of these bosses. If you just want to rip and tear demons left and right, there is no shame in using this once it gets offered to you. Pussy. I'm just kidding. The Fortress of Doom. You've got a cool floating space castle as your hub to unlock stuff and chill out in between missions. I think it's cool, like I can't complain, you know, like it's fine. Master levels. Okay, master levels are these alternate, much more difficult versions of normal levels that are there for you to test your mettle against if you just can't get enough of Doom Eternal. I've only done a couple of these, they are cool, but screw this part with the 2 Marauders and the purple goo. Thanks, Hugo. I love it. Some of these levels even give you the option to play them as though they were a classic Doom game where you start the level with just a shotgun and work your way up to unlocking the rest of your arsenal. I honestly haven't tried it out, but it sounds pretty cool. Cheat codes. Cheat codes let you cheat if you feel like it when you go to replay a level. Want infinite ammo? No problem. Permanent sentinel armor? Party mode? I think these are nice to have, and the fact that you have to find them hidden inside the levels before you can use them makes them all the more appealing to me. Cosmetics. There are a bunch of cosmetic unlocks you can get by just playing the game and progressing what's essentially a free battle pass that resets every few months, or by unlocking them in the Fortress of Doom, or even by mastering all the weapon mods for each weapon. These are nice to have and let you slay in style. I love that these are free. Horde mode. Horde mode is kind of interesting. You get locked into an arena with a shotgun and all the RPG upgrades, kill some waves of enemies, unlock a new fully mastered weapon at random, have a bit of a platforming section, get put into a different arena, and rinse and repeat. You have a finite number of lives and you try to make it to the end and you're being scored on how well you do. I honestly haven't played this enough to say whether I like it or not, but I'm glad that it's there as an option, and it definitely extends the value of the already incredible single player package that is this game. Battle mode. Oh, battle mode. Man, I want to like this, I really do. But I think matches are a bit too one-sided. It's basically a 1v2 multiplayer mode where the Slayer fights off against 2 player-controlled demons that can spawn more demons, and yeah, it's round-based. For the most part, whoever's got the most experienced player wins, and there's not a big enough population for great matchmaking, so it is what it is. And for me, it was sometimes rather laggy too, which made things worse. Like, I would try quick swap into my ballista, nothing would happen for a second, and then it would show up, which just felt awful. It's too bad because it's an interesting game mode on an even playing field, but that only happened like once in 2 hours of trying it out, so not my cup of tea. Mods. There's a pretty significant modding community that has released cool mods for the game, on PC naturally, ranging from custom weapon skins to an enemy randomizer to make for fresh runs every time, to an entire campaign overhaul mod that ratchets the difficulty of the entire campaign up to 11. Obviously, I have not tried that out, I ain't cut out for that, but it's out there for those of you with masochistic tendencies. Alright, that's my checklist taken care of. The only things left I want to talk about are the visuals and the audio. Obviously, you've been watching this video for like 20 minutes now. Doom Eternal looks phenomenal. Everything from the amazing hellish environments to the intimidating and distinct looking demons and their corresponding glory kills to the beautifully shiny weapons that you use to take out the denizens of hell to the Slayer himself. Everything looks top notch. The game is 4 years old now, but it'll be a cold day in hell when it needs the increasingly absurd remaster treatment. All of the levels look different from one another, and they've all got these killer set pieces that make them memorable, like the giant titan thing in Exultia or the humongous turrets in the art complex. Everything just looks astounding. And to make things even more impressive, it runs like a dream. I mean shit, I can run this game at a steady 200 frames per second and it looks bloody amazing. The devs over at id Software are freaking wizards to have pulled this off the way they did. Now the glue that holds this entire game together, the last piece of the puzzle, the thing that makes Doom Doom and not some wannabe knockoff, is the incredible audio. I'm talking Mick Gordon's perfectly fitting soundtrack and the expertly crafted sound design. Mick's signature sound is an integral part of the Doom experience, and knowing that he won't be participating in future games in the franchise is disappointing, but I don't want to focus on that. I'd rather appreciate what we already have here. That dubstep metal sound that Mick is known for is in full effect and takes center stage during all of your combat encounters in this game. The music is extremely driven, you really can't help but keep moving while you're playing and listening to that glorious guitar scream at you. It sounds heavy, deliberate, and incredibly Doom. It's a perfect fit, just like pineapples and pizza. When it comes to music in video games, I'll often find myself turning off if the soundtrack isn't standing out to me or doesn't feel like it fits or it's just not that interesting, in favor of something that I enjoy listening to. Well, I don't even want to imagine playing this game without the music on, or switching it up for something else. I might even go as far as to say that the music is the essence of this game. It just wouldn't work without it. I want to give a specific shout out to the track that plays in the Arc Complex level. Those riffs are insane and the adrenaline goes hard. Coupled with the perfectly well-suited soundtrack are the excellently mixed sound effects the game has in it. Weapons sound so freaking meaty and impactful, every melee hit and glory kill is chonky in the best way possible, and all of those little sound effects that play when your cooldowns for your equipment come off are probably the most useful, informative, but not distracting sound cues I have ever heard in a video game. I mean, I know exactly when my dash or my flame belch are back up, and that's just thanks to this little sound cue that I've been trained over the course of my playthrough to listen to while in the midst of the chaos that can be all of these arena battles. It's wonderful, it's unobtrusive, and it's such a clever solution in terms of not distracting the player with these giant, hey look over here, your cooldown is done now, or even worse, no visual or audio cue at all. I can't even imagine how the audio could be improved upon in future games, and honestly, any game that has any gameplay similarities to Doom should be taking notes on the audio side of things. I rate this game's audio experience a perfect 5 out of 7. I think that at this point, it goes without saying, Doom Eternal is an exceptional game, and it gets a very, very strong recommendation from me. Let me know what you love about Doom Eternal, subscribe for more fun video reviews like this one, and leave a like if you enjoyed it. It really helps me out, especially in this channel's early game, which we are most definitely in. Catch you all in the next one.